Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I asked you for reading and writing assumptions about me, and I'm going to be answering all of them. So this is a video that's going to cover reading and writing. I'm sorry if you're here for one or the other. I hope you don't mind. I've just mishmashed all of your assumptions into one, and we are going to get started by answering them. So the first assumption is there isn't one genre you dislike, and I think this assumption is correct. If I did have to say one genre that I'd be happy never reading, that would be true crime. I struggle with reading true crime, but I also think there are a few true crime books that I would like to try, and maybe I just haven't been reading the right true crime. So in that case, there really isn't one genre I dislike. I sometimes say I don't get along with certain genres, like I say I don't get along with dark romance books, but there'll be also one or two dark romance books that I like, so yeah, there isn't one genre that I completely dislike. You don't have one favorite standout book, and that is definitely correct. I do not have one favorite standout book. Choosing one is difficult. Even when people say choose 5, I'm just like, I need to choose only 5. It's too hard. It's too hard to only have one favorite book. Another assumption is you have read Shakespeare's entire works, and that is true. I think Shannon knows this. I have read all of Shakespeare's works, and it was one of the best things that I did. I have a video where I rank all of Shakespeare's plays, not his entire works, but all of his plays. So if you want to check that video out, I'll have that linked down below. But that was a lot of good fun, and yeah, I love Shakespeare. I'm such a Shakespeare fangirl. You enjoy books about social issues and portraying different cultures, and that is definitely true. I have to say those are some of my favorite books. When you dig into culture, you bridge into identity. When you dig into social issues, you also tend to bridge into identity, and identity is just one of the core themes that I love reading about and studying and thinking about, because it's such a ambiguous concept, identity, and it means so much to different people, and yet people really feel passionate about it, and people feel passionate about their cultures as well. So that is definitely something I love to read about. Maybe I should do an identity books recommendation video at some point, but yeah, I love it. The next assumption is that you love Shakespeare. Why, yes, that is very true. I love Shakespeare. I have many videos about Shakespeare. I should link some of those down below. You read every day, and I think that is true. I think I read in some way or form every day, whether that's only a few pages, whether that's listening to an audiobook, whether that is reading something on my ebook. I'm pretty sure I read every day. I have bad self-control with book buying, and I want to say that's not true, but I think some of you guys are going to be like, what? You definitely have bad book buying control, but that is because I don't actually buy that many books. A lot of my books come from other people's unhauls, which sometimes I buy, but sometimes they just give me. I also get a lot of review copies, and I get a lot of books from free little libraries or such. And when I'm buying, I usually buy with an intention. The past month or two where I've just moved to the UK, I haven't been very good with book buying, and that has been because I've just moved to the UK, which is an English speaking country, which means there are English speaking books, and I get some books from work for free and stuff. So I don't buy that many books, and if I do buy books, I very rarely buy them at full price. So when I did my bookshop crawl and I was buying full price books, I felt it. So I don't actually buy that many books, and I'm going to be going back into my mode of buying control again, because I do want to curb my TBR a little bit. So I'm not setting myself on a hard and fast book buying ban, but I'm going to be buying with intention again, because I took a break from that when I moved, but I definitely need to get back on that. So I'd like to say I have good buying control. I'm very aware of how much I spend on books. I'm very aware of how much I buy, but I'm also more so aware of how much I acquire through different manners rather than buy. And I think I don't have very good book acquiring control sometimes, but buying control, yeah, I'm very careful with how I spend my money. The next assumption is that you've loved reading since you were a child, and that is very true. I've been reading since I can possibly remember. A lot of that has to do with having the best primary school librarian that I could possibly have, who I'm still in contact with even though she's now retired, and also by having a mother who loves reading too and really wanted us to be readers, and well, she succeeded because she has 4 children who are all readers. So it's definitely parental influence and also a brilliant librarian combined that made me love reading when I was younger, and I've never had a period in my life where I haven't loved reading, which is nice, you know? It's nice. Maybe there'll be one in the future, who knows? The next assumption is that you flit between books as the mood takes you, and that is very, very true. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see my Instagram stories where I talk about my current reads, and I'm currently reading about anywhere between 4 to 10 books, because I just like to read what I'm in the mood for, and my mood changes not every week, not every day, hour to hour. Sometimes I just want something that makes me smile if I get to read in that hour. Sometimes I want romance, sometimes I want fantasy, and I just pick up books. Sometimes the mood is even, I don't want to be in the beginning of a book, I want to be in the middle or end of a book. Or the mood is, I want to start something new. And I just go by that mood, which means I just pick up loads and loads of books. I am blessed with not getting confused between plots and characters and such. When I pick up a book, I'm just immediately thrown in and I just remember everything that happened in that book, and I don't get it confused with others. Each book is very individual in my mind, but sometimes it does get a bit much where I feel like I haven't finished a book in forever because I'm reading about 10 at once and I'm in the middle of all of them. But you can also get some really nice sprees where you just finish a whole load of books in a single day. Those seem to be all reading ones, and then we've got some writing ones, and then we'll switch back to reading again. So the next one is a writing one. You have a keen eye for details. You try making things as detailed as possible and as realistic. And I would say this assumption is right/wrong, because I'm 50-50. It depends what we're talking about. If it talks about character and if it talks about theme, I have a lot of details. I have a lot of, you know, fine-tuning, especially when it comes to describing things. As someone who is naturally a poet and not a novelist, I really like the details. So when it comes to describing physicality, like physicality in a room, like there's a sofa, there's a pillow over here, I kind of assume that the reader knows, because I'm not someone who's a visual reader, can't see anything when I read, so I don't actually care for those kind of descriptions. I find them irrelevant because I can't imagine the room, so I don't tend to write them. And other readers need that, so I need to have more detail when it comes to what's immediately around my characters. Another assumption is that I write contemporary with more focus on friendships and romance. Again, another wrong and right one. I do write contemporary. I don't only write contemporary. I tend to flip between genres, so at the moment I have written one contemporary, one children's fantasy book, a lot of poetry collections, and also I'm currently writing an Afrofuturist science fiction kind of horror novel. Afrofuturism tends to blend genres, and I'm definitely taking advantage of that fact there too. So while I did write a contemporary novel in verse, I think that's the only contemporary thing I've ever written, and I don't know if I'll write more contemporary. I feel like that's a very hard genre to write well. But you also mentioned with more of a focus on friendships than romance, and yes, that is correct. I pretty much only write friendships. I do not write romance in books. You will not get any romance from any books from me. I love reading the romance genre. I cannot write it. I am not a heavily romantic person, but I value my friends. I consider myself a loyal person, and therefore there are all the friendships. Lots and lots of friendships. Don't write in a linear way, which means you don't write from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. You just write which scene you want and then you piece it all together. I do. So I have to write chronologically. I start from the beginning, I get to the end. That is the only way I can write. I cannot just jump around. I just can't do it. I would love to be able to do that, but I just can't. Fast writer, this is very, very true. I average at 1,000 words every half an hour, which is fast from what I understand from the people I've written with in like writing sessions and such. It's mostly because I have a very detailed plan. I have everything in my mind by the time I start writing, so I write. It's just a matter of how fast can my fingers type to get those words on the page. You're a planner, not a pantser, and that is very, very true. I plan a lot. I have plans of the characters, I have plans of the plot, everything detailed plan. It does mean that if I change my mind, I have to start the plan all the way from the beginning, which is a bit annoying, but yes, definitely go in with a plan. However, I think my magical children's fiction book didn't have a plan really. It had a outline, but I did write that one in a very peculiar way, which is different circumstances to everything I've ever written since. So that was a bit of a pantser one, but that's the only time I did that. Otherwise, planner for sure. Another reading one, I think you could read anywhere, anytime, that not much could distract you from the point of stopping you from reading. And this is very, very true. I can read with music, I can read in public, I can just read absolutely anywhere. Nothing can stop me from focusing on my book. unless I let it stop me, if that makes sense. You never dog-ear pages, designated bookmarks for every book you read. Very true, I do not dog-ear pages. I don't use bookmarks, but I have collected postcards and I put postcards in books. Before, it used to be business cards because you just get them and sometimes you don't really know what to do with them, so I'd use them as bookmarks. But now I've switched to using my postcard collection as bookmarks. I do collect bookmarks, I just don't want to use them because I like to keep them pristine as a collector rather than as a user of them. For writing assumptions, Hannah gave me a whole load. So the first one is each project is personal, even if it didn't start out that way. Very, very true. I can trace a personal connection to each and every book that I've written or thing that I've written. Your writing is mood dependent. You would struggle to write a happy scene when feeling down, etc. I think my writing is a bit mood dependent, I would say. My poetry is very mood dependent. I would only write sad poetry when I'm sad and happy poetry when I'm happy, and that's the way it goes. For my novel, I don't think it's emotionally mood dependent. I just have to be in the mood to write. I can't write when I'm not in the mood to write. So I can't do the whole thing where you have one day and 1 hour and you write 500 words every day, or you write, you know, I don't know. I can't do that. I just write when I'm in the mood to write. Hannah says, nothing beats finding somewhere new to write, makes it feel more like an adventure. I don't think I'm very pulled to certain places for writing. I can write wherever, whenever, kind of also like reading, but I just tend to like writing in solitude mostly, so I'm not too adventurous with finding writing places. A nice assumption here is that you write from the heart, but in your heart there is a lot of brilliant quirky stuff. That's so lovely. I do write from my heart. I always try to write from my heart, and I invest a lot of passion and emotion into my writing projects, and maybe there's some quirky stuff in there. I think only readers will be able to tell that once they've read something I've written. I feel like it's hard for me to judge that. The next one is you write every single day and are really regimented about it. As I said before, I can't write every single day. I would love to be someone who could write every single day, but I just cannot do it. However, I did mention that I write very fast, so I think it makes up for it. So for example, if someone was making sure that they wrote 500 or 1,000 words every day, I could sit down for 3 hours in a writing mood and then just churn out, I don't know how much 3 hours would give me, 6,000 words. So that'd be caught up, if that makes any sense. It balances each other. So when I do like NaNoWriMo, or I give myself a full-on month to do nothing but write in my spare time, or whenever I feel like it and really focus on writing and I'm really motivated, I can churn out a novel pretty fast. It's just a matter of giving me that time. I just can't be strict about my writing. It's too much of a passion. It's too much of something that really comes from the heart. So I can't schedule it like that. You write first drafts slowly because you couldn't stand leaving mistakes and imperfect sentences in it. This is semi-true. I don't write first drafts slowly because I'm a fast writer, but I also don't like leaving mistakes and imperfections in it. So what I tend to do is I do a light edit as I write. So I'll probably write 5,000 words, and then if I'm in the mood to write, I'll extend that, but if I'm in the mood to edit, I'll edit the first 1,000, and I probably leave about a 5,000 word gap. So if I'm 15,000 words in and I've been in the mood to edit a lot, I'll make sure I stop editing at words 10,000 so that I don't bridge into my writing space where things can change a little bit. So I know that people say, don't edit your first draft as you go along. Yeah, I definitely do that. I don't do like major edits, but I'm not leaving any typos. I'm not leaving any sentences that I don't think suit the story or don't describe things in the definite detailed way I want. I will edit as I write. I write very descriptively. As I said before, this is kind of a hit or miss. It depends what I'm writing that can be written descriptively or not. Especially if I've got an image like a frozen still in my mind, I will describe that amazingly. But if it comes to a character's doing something in a room and I don't particularly care about the room, there will be no description. You seem very organized. Oh, thank you. So I assume you're very structured, make a plan and stick to it. I make a plan and I deviate from it a little bit, but not in a large degree or to large ways. I think sometimes, you know, characters demand that they have this personality trait and you didn't know it until you got there, but I don't change things drastically. So I definitely do stick to my plan more or less. Spend more time working out who your characters are than planning the plot. I spend a lot of time planning the plot simply because I'm not that great at planning the plot, whereas my characters tend to come to me fully formed and all their own. They just spring into existence, so I can just write out that character profile and I know everything about them, and maybe they'll add elements to their personality as I'm writing the book, but I don't really need to give it too much time because they are there naturally. Whereas plot does not come naturally. I always have the theme that I want to push and the characters I want to have in it, and then I have to figure out a plot that is going to bring across that theme that has these characters in it, and it's like piecing that triangle together. That's what the plot is, and therefore it takes a lot of time to plan, it takes a lot of detail. I want to make sure my themes and images are coming through. Again, I think by showing that I have a persona and images and themes, you can see that, again, I am more naturally a poet than a novelist. And then my last writing assumption is that you try to write during the day, but you can't help it. Your best breakthroughs are at 2 a.m. on a Monday, and that is not the case for me. I write best early in the morning. I write best during the afternoon. I cannot write at night because I suffer from insomnia and very bad sleep. So at a certain point in the day, I just crash. I'm an early riser, so I get so tired, let's say around 8 p.m, that my brain it can't work. It can't do what it needs to do. And yet I'm also in this weird phase where I can't fall asleep. So I'm just not really at full brain capacity, but I'm not really able to fall asleep, and it's absolutely horrible. I won't say at 8 p.m, I'd say that happens at 10 p.m, and around 8 p.m I start to feel the effects of having an early morning. But yeah, early morning, I am up, I am active, I am ready to be productive. I do everything best in the morning. The saddest thing is that it's not morning forever, so I can't get all my hobbies, achieved and done in the morning. I do have to live through the afternoon and evening as well. So yeah, but that's the best time for me to write, morning. Those are all the assumptions. I feel like there were more writing assumptions than reading assumptions, but that was a lot of fun to react to. Please let me know in the comment section down below, what are assumptions people make about your reading or your writing, and are they true or not? Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior! You don't write linearly, how do you pronounce that? You